all fuzzy. We're live.
Yo, Gideon, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. A little sad, but I'm doing okay.
Oh, tell me your troubles, Gideon. Please do.
Well,
I'm dying to hear them. I haven't heard from you in like a week.
I know, it's been so long since I've seen you. Or you're a little fuzzy now. There's a bot attack all across the country.
Oh.
Like people's cell phone reception is down, and it's actually a real problem. But anyway, I just found out, by the way. Yes, I just found out, by the way, that, and I'll put our first banner, that I am not allowed to join the CHOP leadership.
And why is that?
Because they are not allowing male Jews, they said, to be the leadership at CHOP. That's an actual quote. So I'm a little sad. I wanted to go down there. I wanted to share my new drink, which we'll talk about, but apparently I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to join the CHOP leadership. It's very upsetting.
Oh man, that sucks. I wanted to be part of the CHOP.
Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if they... Well, you're not Jewish, so maybe you have a chance.
Oh, I think I was just attacked by the technology bot. I was in, I was out, and now I'm back. I was.
Yes. Okay, good. Yes.
So we have some good news here in New York. We are down in count.
That's right.
We're down the death count, the hospitalization count. We're doing pretty well here in New York. I've never been so proud of my city. How about you, Gideon?
Yes. I'm really proud of it. I'm actually really, really proud of our city. And thankfully, it doesn't appear to be any spikes with the protests. There was hundreds of thousands of people, right? And it looks like we have sort of dodged. Maybe it's good for everyone, right? It's good for everyone because then that means that maybe this thing doesn't really transmit well outside, which is good for everybody. So far so good with that.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm watching people post on Facebook lately, right, about this whole mask situation. So in New York, obviously, Governor Cuomo issued the executive order that we can't go into establishments, stores, places of business without a mask on. Correct? I did hear that correctly. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
you can.
However, people seem to still be going into these same establishments and not wearing masks, and yet they're being admitted into whatever it is, a supermarket or a convenience store or a fast food place, whatever it is, and yet they're saying that it's not really the establishment's fault because the employees that work there are too young and are afraid and intimidated to kick the person out of the store for not wearing the mask, which I call bullshit on. I call bullshit. I think
but they can kick you out if you don't wear a shirt.
Absolutely. No, yeah, right. No shirt, no shoes, no service, right? So, why can't they enforce you on wearing a mask? Right. I call bullshit on it. I feel like it's just certain establishments being lazy, and they need to take a bigger stance and enforce this. So, I'd like to give a little public service announcement right now. This is a mask. Yes, this is an official mask for COVID.
Yes.
And here's your nose. Here's your mouth. And usually, we have two ears. Some people more fortunate than others. So you just place it, straps there. Very simple. Very simple. That? And I feel like
that's amazing.
I feel like the faster we get through this phase, the faster we get to this phase where there is no mask.
Wow, that's impressive, Stephen. Did you come up with that before the show? The presentation like that? I liked it.
I did where I do all my best thinking, which is usually in the bathroom. So I had a good 15 minutes, and then I thought, hey, what would be great? A mask right now.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's a great idea, actually. All right, so that's the end of mask wars, I think, for now.
Yes.
Oh, I got people going talking about CHOP. It's it used to be Chaz. It was the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, but we don't like to get into those kinds of things. I just wanted to make a joke about how I wasn't eligible to be their leader or on their leadership council. So.
I'm not seeing the comments. Did you say we got a comment?
Oh, yes. I said they said that it's controversial what I said, but sorry.
Yeah.
It's a little sad. Sorry.
Oh, Renee. Sorry, Renee. So what else is in the news, Gideon? Let's go on to what else is in the news.
Yes, till we get our guest here. Okay, let's see what we can talk about here. That would be fun. This is a fun one, actually, that has to do with everything that we're talking about. There is a high. We weren't allowed to. I can't see the whole study, right? I can't see the whole study because it's behind a paywall. But that there is a high correlation between narcissism and political participation. What do we think of that one?
I don't know what to think about it. I think okay, I'm in a business where narcissism rules, I think. So I don't
well, they are active. I think of Hollywood. I saw that kind of video with I don't know his name, the guy from Breaking Bad and the woman from American Horror Story. I don't remember these people's names. I'm so bad with them. And they were saying, I take responsibility. And everyone's like, nobody wanted to see this. Nobody wanted to see this. So I think of Hollywood too, with this high correlation between narcissism and political participation.
It's funny. I feel like people want other people to stop dictating to them what they should be doing. However, if people had common sense, people wouldn't have to dictate to them. Does it make sense? Like, I feel like it's the whole issue on everything. Even like COVID. Look at COVID. Ready? COVID is people are tired of other people yelling at them to wear a mask. Well, if you just put on a fucking mask and did your part, people wouldn't yell at you about it. But obviously, you don't have the sense to wear a fucking mask, so I'm going to yell at you about it. I don't know. I feel like I can say that now because we're in New York. Our count's down, and we did our job. We did.
That's actually one of our stories. Yeah, that's actually was one of the stories that I was going to share with us today. That we have a 7-day, our low in everything since March 21st. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep it that way. Let's not get too crazy. Let's celebrate, but celebrate behind the mask.
Yes, celebrate behind the mask. That's a funny. I just realized what you're saying. Okay, we do have a guest today, of course. We do have a guest. She'll be coming on shortly. I'm very excited about that, and we will talk about that. But speaking of, this was one more story we're going to do before she joins us here. I really, really like this story, and I want to know what you think of it. We always talk about like lack of knowledge and people not paying attention to what they're talking about and all these kinds of, they're not really doing anything. So Twitter has, in a limited capacity, they are sharing this goal here. And basically what it is that they want to limit people sharing articles that they have not read. So the way it works is if you just decide to retweet something and then you haven't clicked on the link, it will give you a warning. It'll say, are you sure you want to share this story? So they encourage you to click through and link through. And I think it's a great idea. And actually, this was started because of another story that was basically sort of a social experiment that I really thought was just the funniest thing ever. And this was shared around 2 years ago. And it was this story that somebody decided to come up with as part of a sociological experiment. And that was this. So you see, I'll try that again. You see, it says here, study, 70% of Facebook users only read the headline of science stories before commenting, right? Okay, that sounds great. Now, so what you do, you scroll down, and then you see the first sentence here. It says, a recent study showed that 70% of people actually never read more than the headline of a science article before commenting and sharing. Most simply see a headline they like and click share and make a comment, and then it repeats it. A recent study showed that 70% repeats that sentence, and then beneath it is all Latin gibberish. Do you see this? Lorem ipsum dolore. So it tricks tons of people into sharing an article that they clearly didn't read because they liked, what they thought of it.
See, I think it should work the opposite way. I don't think it should ask you the question, do you want to share this having not read it? They should let you share it and then say, so-and-so would like you to see something that they haven't read yet. I think it should call the people out that haven't read it when they post it.
Okay.
Oh wait, Carrie Ann Matheson. Thank you. I was on the plane today for everyone not wearing a mask except for 2 jerks who refused. I hope that wasn't you and Ben, Carrie Ann. I really hope it wasn't. Refused to wear the mask, but I'm sure he did. I saw the picture, and I'm glad you made it safe. Yeah, I think those assholes should be taken off the plane. dragged out by their legs. I don't. Look, I mean, look. You know what? Here, it's not that expensive. I mean, it could be, but you could also get them for free. Like people, they should go to places like clinics, and they should just be able to hand these out to people that can't afford them. They should be able, everyone should have a mask. Just wear it. No one cares what you look like with it on. We're all wearing one. Just please do it. And not like this. People wear them like this. People wear them like this.
Hey, what is with that? What is with the under the nose thing that people wear all the time? I don't understand that. Why do they do that?
I have no idea. The more and more I try to understand things, Gideon, the less and less I do. So I think it's just a problem with me, not anyone else. It's my problem. What else do we have? What else do we have in the news today? What else do we have? Oh,
what else do we have?
This week in alcohol. We haven't talked about this week in alcohol.
That's right. Oh, this is a good one. I wanted to talk about this one. Okay, here we go. Okay, this week in alcohol. I'd like to go first. Of course, my favorite is the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Well, somebody decided that I am just in need of this, and here it is, Buffalo Trace Kosher. Now the reality is that there are no actual unkosher ingredients in whiskey, right? You're not putting pork fat in most bourbons, as far as I know. And my adorable liquor store owner downstairs says to me, well, through the mask, by the way, and he says, well, actually what happens is the rabbi goes around and he blesses the bourbon. That's actually not true. I mean, it was a funny image to imagine this guy from Brooklyn going, okay, you're good, Baruch atah Adonai, going down all the different bottles of bourbon, but that's actually not how it works. But in any event, I'm glad they did it. It tastes identical as it should. So it might be a little newer, a little fresher than the standard Buffalo Trace, but I'm a big fan of that one. So
Buffalo Trace Kosher is like Diet Coke. It doesn't really make you skinny. It's just called diet to sell more soda. I mean,
Kosher doesn't try to make you skinny, right?
Which brings me to mind. I now have the classic Jack and Coke. Jack and Diet Coke, actually. It's the Las Vegas drink when you're not in Vegas. How about that?
I love it. I think that's great. And actually, our guest is here. So I will start my introductions for this guest. We are very lucky to have a dear friend of mine who is virtually family. And I actually have a bio. This is, we have soprano Leah Crocodiles. I know her very well. She was originally an Adler Fellow in 2008 at the San Francisco Opera, where she performed several roles, such as Leo in Turandot. She went on to win the Metropolitan Opera competition. She has represented the United States of America for Cardiff, performed many of the Verdi heroines like Desdemona, in Otello, and Leonora in Trovatore, singing with such companies as San Francisco Opera, Metropolitan Opera, Seattle Opera, Santa Fe Opera, English National Opera, Dallas Opera, blah. This resume is almost as boring as yours, Stephen. Clearly, these people didn't amount to anything. Leah didn't amount to anything, but we're really excited to have her. But before we bring her on, let's let everyone have an idea of what we're in store for here. So here we have a nice clip of Leah from a recent production singing the Tace la Notte. It's terrible. We'll work on those high notes, lady. Okay. And there she is.
Leah, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Man, with friends like him, what are you gonna do?
I know,
Oh,
my
man.
word. You made me sound like a celeb.
You are.
So what's going on in the world of Leia right now? I mean, because we're both, all three of us are singers. We're all out of work. What are you doing right now to keep your
Well-
keep your spirits up, keep your time consumed? What are you doing?
Right at this moment, I'm babysitting my niece. She's in my bedroom right now watching her stories, she calls them. Her
Stories.
Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. You know how it is.
Mm.
But I'm enjoying summer. I'm spending time with my family. I'm saving my pennies because unemployment. What else? You know, trying to sing what I want to sing when I want to sing it, and pray that we get to a paycheck soon.
Were you supposed to be somewhere right now? I mean,
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was supposed to be making my Australian opera debut, singing Aida at the Sydney Opera House right now.
Wow,
Yeah.
man, that is major. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Do you have another
That
Aida
small
coming up?
company.
Well, they're talking about postponing it, like bringing it back. We just haven't nailed down a date yet. So hopefully that will happen soon. If not, I'm supposed to be in Sydney again, so I'll be able to make my Sydney opera debut, which will be great.
Oh man, sorry to hear about that.
Thanks.
Are you one of these? Are you like me in a way? So you have to be motivated to practice, to sing, to work on a role. Do you? I get really frustrated lately because I want to be motivated, and I'll sit down and look at something, and then I'll be practicing, and then I'm like, well, what the fuck am I doing this for? Like, I have nothing coming up for a couple months, and getting past that barrier. How hard is that for you?
Oh, it's really hard. My fall jobs haven't been canceled yet officially. So I could really be working on Maometto Secondo because that's fucking hard. But at the same time, like thinking about that and thinking, oh, it might not be there. So motivating myself to do that and knowing that I have nothing for months at a time, that makes it hard to practice. For sure.
Leah, you moved recently, right?
Get past it really.
So Leah, you moved recently.
I
were in. Where were you again?
You see my vacuum cleaner back there? Wait, Brett.
I'm more concerned about what the towel is for. I'm not.
It's a blanket, yo.
Oh, sorry. It looks like. Pardon me. It looked like a towel.
Leah, I was going to ask you about your move, and with relation to singers, to young singers especially, a lot of them crash in New York or they desperately want to move to New York. You've only lived in New York for pretty limited periods of time, generally speaking. It was only mostly after you had an engagement here already. Do you think that singers can survive not living in New York during the season? And what would you recommend for that?
Well, I would suggest they look at how many auditions they're going to be doing. You know, if they have some lined up, there's really no point in getting a place there unless you have things that you can do and a way to make an income, or you have a sugar daddy or a sugar mama. That's what I have to say about that, because it's fucking expensive, A.
Yeah. Well, I think to be quite honest, I think something you just said, look at the auditions coming up. I don't think it's worrying about living in New York City to be there for auditions, because I don't see any auditionings happening.
Right, exactly.
I mean, things are being closed left and right because people, auditions usually happen when there's a collective group and they're from all over the world. And not everyone gets to New York, so they're canceling auditions. That's a problem. I mean, you're in the business, Leia. When you were a young singer, auditions were key. They were important, at least for the first couple of years, right?
Sure. Well, for me, my tale is different. It's a lot like yours, kind of, Stephen, in the way that you were at AVA. AVA sort of set your path for you. I was in San Francisco at Marilla, and at the Marilla Grand Finale, I sort of made a splash and did probably only 5 or so auditions after that for the rest of my career. So Marilla really helped me. My Adler Fellowship helped me. I signed with my manager right out of Marilla. So, yeah. So if you're not going to be doing auditions, don't go to New York.
I did not make a splash at the Marilla grand finale. Just thought that I would let you guys know that my 90-second aria, the audience didn't realize it was over. That was the longest 3 seconds of my life before they realized it was over. But they did cheer afterwards. Anyway, sorry.
But what do you see? I mean, what do you see as the future for our business for younger singers? I mean, because they have, I feel like in the upcoming seasons they have a bigger hill to climb than we ever had.
Oh,
and
definitely.
it's because schools are being canceled in the fall, or they're not, and you're taking lessons over the computer for at least 7 months now, right?
Oh, yeah.
And while established artists are going to continue to get work in future seasons as they plan because they know them,
Right.
there other singers are being left out that are not known because they don't have the audition season, they don't have the competitions, they don't have all the things that would get you seen in bigger cities, right?
Right.
So if they're hiring for a couple seasons out and they're using people they know, that means it's going to be a few years unless people cancel, it's going to be a few years of people constantly auditioning and being unemployed, it seems.
Yeah, I have, this past year I was the artist in residence for the Washington National Opera. So I was able to work with a lot of the young artists and mentor them a little bit. And also I've done the same with University of Texas at Austin, worked with their opera department. And I get asked that question all the time. And it feels disingenuous to say, oh, our business is going to continue as usual, because that's not the way it's going to be. It's, one of the companies we all know and love has already asked me to be on hold for a certain thing because they know that their soprano isn't going to be able to come over from Europe. So it's one of those things where they're not going to hold an audition to cast their season. It's going to be, and young artist programs are sort of deferring for this summer, all of the young artist programs are canceled. So most of them are giving the singers the opportunity to just defer until next summer. Yeah. So that's going to cut off a bunch of auditions for them too. And I feel for them. And my advice to them, use this summer to learn a language. Use this summer to really coach and get some good rep under your belt. Pick some arias that you love to sing. But it's all a toss-up. I don't have the answers.
I agree with you 100%. Build up your rep, study in the time off, because the opportunity you will get is probably not going to come in the form of an audition. It's going to come in the form of being called at the last minute as a cancellation. Because I mean, there's just, it's impossible. How can you can't hold auditions? And I've been hearing that from friends in the business and other organizations that are just putting things on hold. And it's the younger singers. I mean, look, we're all hurting now because no one is getting anything. Everyone's out of work. But when it goes back, it's going to be these younger singers that are affected the most. I hope not. I hope we're all wrong on that. But it just seems like the way that the cards are falling at the moment, that's what's going to happen.
So, Stephen, I wanted to jump in for a second here. After our show, I believe it was last week when we were talking about Zoom lessons, friend to the show and my mentor for a very long time, Mr. Mark Oswald, left me a very nice and thoughtful message with respect to the ability, the proficiency of teaching over Zoom. Right. And whether or not it was as effective or not. And he was of the opinion, and he's in the chat. I've asked him to stay for a second. And he was really of the opinion that a skilled teacher like himself, and I won't dispute that for a second, it's been 15 years, so I better not, felt that a skilled teacher would not be shackled by the restraints of Zoom, and that a student could get just as much effort or just as much out of a lesson as he would in person. That's essentially what it was. He said it much better than I did. What do you think about that?
Leah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I agree with him.
Hi,
Judy. How are you?
Hello, say hello, world.
Hello, what?
Hello, Gigi.
I agree. I was at the school where I was very anti-teaching via Zoom until I did it.
And look at this pretty corn nut.
Pretty corn nut. It's a pine cone. Okay, go be quiet.
That's
Okay.
right.
You are making my argument for Zoom.
Yes.
Yes.
So I didn't think that I could do it. You're gonna go back in your room. Thank you. I didn't think that I could do it until I actually did it. And I was teaching them, and it's really, you can't really make art via Zoom, but you can tweak technique really well because of the proximity of the voice to the microphone. But you can't really, for me, you can't do phrasing and all of that stuff because you can't really hear the piano accompaniment, you know?
You know, what I was saying last week was, but you've taught probably the people that you've worked with before, right?
Yes.
See,
yes.
I find that it would be hard to establish a connection with a student that you've never taught before, only hearing them on Zoom for the first time.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Mark? For first time lesson, there is a delay, so we'll come back. But he first responds that teachers must have the ability to see the invisible.
Send them a link.
Definitely.
Bring them on.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Does it, Mark? Do you have time to come on to the show? We would have you on. He's I don't know. We'll wait for a response. See if he can come on. I know he's a busy man.
He
does try to come in every so often. Yes.
Yeah, I find it hard that, like, if you don't know someone for the first time, to understand what their instrument is via Zoom is hard. I mean, to hear it over the computer, it's hard. Usually a lot of the success will come from people that have worked with them before. You know, it's easier if you've worked with. So look, I've called my teacher to have like a fixed session on a social media, like an instant messenger or whatever it was. And I find that he can do it because he knows my voice and he knows what to look for. And I find that it might be harder to take someone you've never worked with before and understand how their voice works if you're listening to it just strictly from the computer.
He says, decibel is indeed hard. He does say that. So I suppose volume is something that's, something of a factor for it. But we should have him on. We'll have him on to discuss this more in detail sometime. But I'm glad that he stayed in the chat a little bit.
Decibel is hard.
Yeah.
Let me just say the students of mine that have done the best via Zoom don't have a voice like mine, in the sense that the top, you can't really gauge the top. It's sort of decibels out. You know what I mean?
And it's also hard to judge about the size of the voice. I mean, some people that seem to have bigger voices over the computer actually have smaller voices in person. Mm-hmm. And there's many times where I've sat next to someone like Marcello Giordani, who you know, and I'm sure have you sung with him? The late Marcello Giordani, incredible guy.
Wonderful man.
Very sad. But he was one of those singers where when you're standing next to him, the voice didn't sound that big. No. But when you hear him in the house, when you heard him in the house, the voice was insane. That's what you're missing over the computer. Yes. You're missing those types of voices. And
overtone and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I think Mark means improve quality. Even Skype can improve the quality. We have a comment from Carrie Ann Matheson. Says, I've been coaching students in Russia, some who I've never met. This is the perfect time for highly detailed language and character work. It's been really interesting for me. High notes are problematic.
No, it's true, because you get that static.
Yeah.
But
and Mark has one more comment. He says, decibel quality and size, not easy, but technique changes are possible.
Definitely. I agree with you, Mark.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's get on a subject that I hope you don't mind talking about. And I don't think we really plan on talking about it too much. But what can we do in our business to change, to help equality, to help like the Black Lives Matter movement, and what it is that we can do in our industry to make it more diverse? Because right now it's eye-opening reading all the stories, and especially a couple ones that just came on about people being discriminated against in young artist festivals and stuff like that. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of it's really eye opening because these are stories that you never hear, and the only reason we're hearing them now is because people are finally feeling like they can come forward and tell them. And it's sad that it took this long for that to happen. So
it is.
So what do you? It's hard to explain. What do you feel like where we should go in our industry? And how can we help to make it better?
I think it's a tricky question because I feel like as artists, you know, when you grow up an artist or a theater person in school, you're at least for me, it was, you know, I was a theater person, but I also played sports. But in my theater group were all of the people that were different. So you think the arts are supposed to be all accepting and all encompassing, and you're not supposed to shun someone because they look different or they, you know, have a different lifestyle than you or they are different than you. You're not supposed to shun them. It's supposed to be an accepting group. And I feel like opera has just not done a great job at that. I feel like opera, I can't speak to being a different race, but I can speak to being an overweight woman. And I have been discriminated against immensely because God forbid a heavy woman falls in love on stage. I've fallen in love millions of times in my life. Well, millions of quite a few times in my life. So, but God forbid I portray that on stage. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there's a responsibility in the arts, especially opera right now, to at least meet the rest of society and the rest of the entertainment industry where they are. Mm-hmm. I feel like even TV has done a better job than opera in many ways. So that's what I have to say about that. I think, you know,
it's funny because I always keep hearing the topic of we need to have more African-American singers singing roles like Aida and Radames and things like that. And I disagree. I feel like they should be singing other roles than just that. Like, I feel like if that's the question you're saying, if that's the statement you're making, saying that, oh yes, we should have a black Aida. Of course we should have a black Aida, but we should also have a black Mimi. We should also have a black Elvira. We should also have, I mean, you could, you know, it's like a black Rodolfo, Nemorino. Like there is no, that's the thing. These roles are can be played by anybody that can sing it.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
And they
should be. It needs to be about the voice and what you can do to the voice and how you can move on stage and how you can interpret the role. It's got to come from a place where it just is natural. And I think it's, you know, Lord help me if any producers or presenters are listening, but I hate to say it, but we've got to accept the fact that we cannot be, what's the word I'm looking for? We cannot be held captive by our donors anymore. I have experienced much prejudice with donors. I have had people tell certain producers that they're going to withdraw their donation if I go on stage. But then I've had others pay for an entire performance for me to sing. The same goes with my African-American colleagues. I've heard stories of people saying, oh, I don't understand why there's a black countess on stage. There were no countesses that were black during that time. I'm sorry, are we reading a history book? Are we watching a historically accurate movie? No. Yeah. That is a bunch of bullshit. And we can't be held captive by that. We cannot be, that can't be, the donors can't be the first go-to, the first hurdle.
There was a petition going around now. There was a petition going around. Not too many people signed it. That asking the Met on their on-demand to get rid of any performances that feature so-called blackface or yellow face. And it reminded me, and of course, we view these things now certainly as being sort of grotesque and tasteless, but if you look at some of the old Leontine Price as Cho-Cho-san, which is, I mean, she's the best butterfly, probably, in my opinion, easily one of the best butterflies that has ever been.
Victoria
but that
de
was
Los
how long
Angeles
ago?
is butterfly too.
Yeah, how long ago? And Domingo's Otello, I mean, is phenomenal.
It's hard. It's hard to, because here's the thing. I disagree with blackface in general. I don't think now in this day it's a terrible concept. But I also don't think the people in those productions were trying to be malicious about anything or trying to be racist about anything. And I think that a lot of them have done their character study in order to not have that come across. And it's hard. It's hard because it's such a sensitive topic right now. I mean, as it should be, but from something from so long ago that was done in an artistic way, it's a really hard question. And then should we get rid of those videos? And I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is to that. I think anybody that's ever used blackface to make a joke, anybody that's ever used blackface as arrogance and ignorance should be shot.
Agreed.
But I don't know when it comes to I don't know. There was
sort of cut you off soon. There was a fear recently that HBO Max had just pulled down Gone with the Wind. Of course, Gone with the Wind featured the first African-American Oscar winner for an actor. Of course, the way they treated her leading up to that is despicable, but they took it down, but they are putting it back with a sort of a disclaimer that this was made at a different time. It doesn't represent how we feel now. I'm fine with that. Don't get rid of it. If you feel it's offensive to modern eyes and you don't want to be associated with it and you desperately want to disassociate from a practice that was done in the 60s, okay. I'm fine with that. I think getting rid of that performance, getting rid of a Leontine Price Cho-Cho-san, getting rid of a Domingo Otello, I don't know. I think it does a disservice to the art in a way because those 100%. Performances are just so great despite the tasteless through our modern eyes view of the makeup.
Here's the thing I said before. Look, we will never know what that feels like. So It's kind of hard for us to even make that decision. I mean, I think it's up to the voices that it really affects. Needs. We have to respect that, and that's like the people that are really hurt by those things. We need to take their point. We need to understand it, and then make those decisions. And I feel like as a society, we just need to do better. We need to do better. I mean, it is just, we only have one life, and the moment we're all fucking it up. So,
100%.
So we need to do better, 100% around the board. And I had this, we talk about politics all the time, Gideon, and this is where, like, when we're talking about such a systemic change like this, right? What do we have to do? We have to go after the system. And the system that we need to go after immediately is our government. Because if the government doesn't change, we're not changing.
And we talked about how a lot of the local governments have been the same for decades and nothing ever gets changed.
And you know what?
Now they want to change. Now.
Well, you know what? We need to start by putting term limits on all the people in the House and all the people in the Senate. Because you know what? All those people that have been in office for 30 to 50 years in the same position have not been making any changes. We need fresh faces in there. We need fresh ideas. We need to really shake things up. And without putting term limits on anything, it's going to be like we're only like making the hill higher. We need to start with the government, and we need to dissect it and really make the change.
Yeah, government reform is huge. I think after this election, there needs to be more than two-party. I think the two-party system needs to go bye-bye.
Of course.
And what'd you say, what for?
Of course. No, I said of course.
Of course, yes.
Stephen, I want you to take this comment here from our friends of the show, John Roy, and tell me what you think of this.
Hi,
it's Susie. Can you read it? She says, hi, it's Susie.
I've never seen Breakfast at Tiffany's.
It's my
There's
favorite movie of all time.
There's
Really?
a character, Mickey Rooney portrays this very stereotypical, like almost like borderline, like slanting his eyes kind of Asian character.
Yeah,
in Breakfast at
Yoshi.
Tiffany's. And so she says as an Asian American, she doesn't want to get rid of it. It was a relic of the time. And that actually brings us into our first story. Should we go on?
Yeah,
Or what do you think? Should we go on to one of our first stories here?
absolutely.
Okay, so here we go. So continuing that theme, John Cleese, the great comedian John Cleese, was up in arms earlier this week because the BBC wanted to get rid of an episode of his most beloved show, Fawlty Towers. And in the show, this episode is called The Germans. The main character, John Cleese, plays a hotel manager. He has a head injury, and as a result, he can't really, filter what he has to say. And he starts, berating these German guests of this hotel, and it ultimately ends with him goose stepping around the whole hotel. It's considered one of the funniest things that has ever been. One of the funniest, most beloved episodes. Is like the top 10 of all TV shows. However, earlier in the show, there's an old man called the Major, who goes on and he's talking about, he's completely incoherent. He's playing the senile man, and he uses the N-word. And the punchline is, he goes, "I told my wife, no, don't say the N-word, they're this." And it was another older racial slur. And John Cleese says that he comments on it. He says, "The Major was an old fossil left from over decades before. We were not supporting his views. We were making fun of them. If people are too stupid to see that, what can one say?" So that's that episode. Have you ever watched the show, Steven?
No, but you know what? Anybody that uses that word needs to be taken off. I'm sorry. It's offensive to some people. I think so. I think it's offensive. I think
they reversed their decision, actually. They brought it back. The BBC decided that they weren't going to get rid of that episode.
I'm sorry. I just think that's
they should.
Absolutely. I think I'm sorry. It's not especially in that context. It's not funny. It's just, even if you're making fun of something, it's not funny. It's just not funny. That's not a funny thing. That's not something that other people find funny. And I feel like a lot of people have been hurt over far less. And I think, I'm sorry. Yeah. At this point, I think that people have spoken. Get rid of it. Get rid of it.
So get rid of it in its entirety, or just take it off of BBC and then you can buy the DVD?
Well, that I don't know. That's not for me to decide. That's for them to decide. But I think that I personally wouldn't watch it. I personally wouldn't watch it, nor would I support it. So
yeah,
I think it's funny.
So it was interesting. John Cleese does support. He was very vocal supporter of the Black Lives Matter protests, even in England. But I think this does bring in a different conversation. That is the issue of context, right? So if he claims that he's making fun of the racist, that the racist isn't portrayed in a positive light. So you say if he says it, it's still bad. But
here's the thing. Yeah. In history, people have made fun of racism. People have made fun of the Holocaust. Yeah. People have made fun of everything. It's not funny. Obviously, people that were trying to make it funny to show the point, people haven't gotten it. People.
You think Mel Brooks isn't funny when he makes fun of Nazis? I think it's fucking hilarious. It makes my world spin. He's making fun of racists, and he says horrible things about his own people to lampoon the Nazis, because he makes them out to be ridiculous people, which they are and were. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. That's an interesting one.
I'm a fan of Mel Brooks, but I also hear from the people that don't find it funny, and I feel like it's that something like that is just. I don't think racism is a funny issue, especially not right now with all of the people out there that are protesting because racism is so systemic and it's such a problem. they don't find it funny. People don't find it funny, and I think for this, there are many other things in this world that we can be funny about right now, and that's not one of them. So we move on until that issue is where it should be. I mean, even then, it's still not funny. But it's there's a major problem in here. When you have a problem like that, I don't know. I just don't find it funny.
Okay,
I'm kind of with you on that, Stephen.
Russia urges the U.S. to observe democratic standards. That's right. Russia is lecturing the U.S. about civil rights. Really? And here's the pull quote. They say, it's time for the U.S. to drop the mentor's tone and look in the mirror. Start respecting people's rights and observing democratic standards at home. Thank you, Vladimir. I murder journalists all over the world, Putin, for that lesson. Sorry, I revealed my opinion early. What do we think?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm on the fence here. I have a lot of Russian friends who I love and I think are amazing people. So,
absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't. I have to be honest with you. I have trouble believing any politician anymore. I just feel like politicians in general are just like kryptonite to me at the moment. Like they just make me sad, deflated.
You're over it.
And I'm over people. I'm over people not doing their job and passing the buck. That's what I'm over. I'm over people speaking when they should be listening. I'm over, like I told you in the last show, I'm over people running campaigns on change and then not doing it, as we know by these people that are 30 plus years in our government system. I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm over it. I want to see new people. I want to see new faces. I want people to come and vote, and I want people to fucking change things up.
Praise the Lord.
Well, now comes praise the Lord, Leah. Do you have anything to add, Leah, before we move on to everyone's favorite segment?
I could say a lot of things, but I think I get myself in trouble. So I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to say I'm calling Putin's bullshit on that, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, moving on. Do we give a shit? In which we discuss the stories of the day, but talk about whether or not we give a shit. And this is actually a big one for me and Leah, I know. And that is that once again, the Major League Baseball players have rejected the latest offer from the owners. This was 70% guaranteed of their prorated contract. So it means their fee per game, they would get 70% of that fee. And I believe it was a 76 game season. And the players have rejected the offer. They say we will only take the 100% prorated. That means the actual guaranteed rate per game. You just tell us when to start, how long the season is. Belinda has said she gives a shit. Leah, do you give a shit?
I absolutely give a shit. And I'm going to tell you why. Can I?
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Here's why. Baseball, the reason I've been such a fan of baseball my entire life, so much so that A, I wanted to marry Travis Fryman, the third baseman for the Detroit Tigers. And B, I wanted to be the first woman in the MLB my entire life. The reason is because I thought these players were truly about the game. This is ruining all my childhood dreams and making me think, what arrogant, greedy assholes.
Who are the greedy assholes? Of the players or the owners?
The players.
Oh,
but the game for 70%. Because I miss watching it, damn it.
But it's 70% per game. It's not 70% of the full contract, right?
Yeah.
So they're saying pay us this thing per game. But of course, as we talked about on the show, 40%, over 40% of the income for the owners is from the stands, from the audience, which we wouldn't have, of course, because of the coronavirus. So they want to compromise. They're saying 70%, which is among the higher, at 70% guaranteed, and it would go up if we managed to avoid a shutdown before the postseason. I don't think there's going to be another shutdown, period. we're opening up. Things are mostly doing well despite a few areas. So I don't think that'll happen. But so you think that the players need to suck it up?
Well, okay, when you put it in perspective like that, I mean, here's the thing though: if they don't play at all, it's a tendency. There's a chance
zero. Then they get right.
Yeah, they're not making anything. And Belinda, I see you agree with me, and I appreciate you very much for agreeing with me. I want the game to come back. I love baseball. It is not summer without baseball. I want to enjoy my San Francisco Giants and my Detroit Tigers. Period. Yes, my darling. And Gigi
I have this
agrees.
shirt for you, Leah.
Yes,
I'm wearing this
Detroit.
shirt for you. I'm wearing this shirt for you. Steven, what do you think? Do you give a shit?
I give a shit from a guy that's been getting 0% of his contracts. I'd like.
Yes, that's what
Hi,
Gigi.
I think, I think in this climate and in our down economic system and unemployment levels being so low, I feel like you should be lucky to have a job at this point. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you're gonna be America's sport, baseball, and have such a American pastime, then do something for the American public and fucking take your 70% and play the game.
So this is what I'll say. When I was younger, remember the big strike in '94? When I was younger, I would meet people around the 2000s when the Yankees were killing it. Be like, "Oh, go Yankees! Are you watching?" And they'd say, "No, we don't care." And I said, "What do you mean you don't care?" And they said, "Well, I was turned off by the strike." And I didn't really get that mentality, but now that I've been without baseball for so long and I'm so disgusted with their public mean girl spat that they're doing, I'm getting to the point where I don't give a shit.
Well, here's the thing, right? How many fans have supported the teams when they sucked, right? So like you're constantly paying to go to the games, you're keeping them in business, you're going to these games when they're doing shitty, and now when the American system and the public is in a shitty time, you're going to fucking negotiate over your contract to play
and publicly, I think that's the big problem too. It's not even.
I'm getting tired.
Moving on. We all are moving on. You ready for this one? Lions and tigers and ostrich crocodiles. Oh my! They just found these fossils of these feet that they have determined that basically crocodile-like creatures ran like ostriches on land. Can you fucking imagine crocodiles being able to run like ostriches wherever they want? What do we think of that?
I don't give a shit.
But I think it's cool.
What's that?
I said I don't give a shit, but I think it's cool.
I don't give a shit, but I think it's cool. Okay, wait. Well, that was shorter than I was willing to be able to negotiate with. But hold on. So we have another really, really fun story here. I like this one. So
unless they cure COVID, I don't give a shit.
What's that?
Unless they cure COVID, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Unless they cure COVID, you don't give a shit. Okay. So moving on to the next story. This is fun. The president of the Bourbon Confederacy. What? So apparently, while we are all removing statues of Confederate soldiers, they decided to remove the statue of the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis. And what did they find inside but a bottle of Glenmore, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey and a copy of the State Journal newspaper from October 20th, 1936, which was the day the statue was erected. So this is also sort of a thorn in the side of people who don't want to bring these statues down, because this was put up in 1936. This wasn't some, put up in 1866, like right after the war kind of thing. This was put up a solid 70 years later. But I love the fact that they found a big ass bottle of fucking bourbon in it. What do you guys think of that?
I think they should have never put up the Confederate general. They should have put a statue with a bottle of bourbon. They should have put a statue of a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, that's the bottle of bourbon.
That's what they seem to do best, right?
I agree with that. It says spoken like true Northerners. Spoken like true Northerners. And this is, speaking of tearing things down, this is a fun story. I kind of love this story. Here you go. This story here. Whoops. Did I do it? Oh, I'm messing up. Sorry, technical difficulties. You'll please forgive me.
That's all right.
I'm trying to do everything at once. Okay, here we go. So, a woman found a decades-old message. She took down her wallpaper, and she found a note here from a guy who only identified himself here as John. And what does the note say? He says, if you ever need to wallpaper this room again, it will take 8 rolls of wallpaper. I just bought 6 rolls at 17. What is that? Pounds, excuse me. $20 per roll. I didn't have enough. It really pissed me off. So here we have John letting everyone know how many rolls of wallpaper takes. I kind of love this story.
I love John. He's such a considerate Brit.
Really, well, it depends on if he's considerate. Like, he's helpful if he's telling you need 7 rolls to cover the room.
Yes.
But
yes.
if he papered over 7 layers, then he's an asshole. Like if he did, so like
what was that? What was that?
Like if you have to take down 7 layers of wallpaper just to put up a new one, then he's an asshole, right? Like if he didn't do it the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go.
Oh, I was gonna say
No, you go first.
Wallpaper to Victorian house. Our childhood house was definitely 13 layers, and my mom sat there scraping the whole thing. So yes, you're right, Stephen. If he wallpapered over 7 layers, he's an asshole.
Oh, there's nothing worse than trying to like peel wallpaper down to find out you have another layer that you have to peel down.
Oh,
you know, I've never lived in a place with wallpaper. You know that? Never
really?
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Never did.
Wow.
Never did. Mom didn't do it. Mom, the architect, she wasn't having it. She wasn't having the architect shit. All right, let's see what else we got here, shall we?
More angry, Gideon.
Oh, I'm getting you more angry?
Never lived in a house with wallpaper.
No, I never lived in a house with wallpaper. I mean, what am I supposed to? Hey, Mom, you know, I'm 4 years old. Let's go to a place with wallpaper. No, it's not going to happen. All right. So here we go. Here. So politics can be such a pain in the ass. And what do I mean by that? This is what I mean. I mean, this politician in Taiwan decided, he says a recall vote for the mayor of Taipei managed to get everybody's attention. This guy here, pictured here, pantsless, holding up a chopstick in Taiwan, says that he will snap 1 chopstick in 2 with his buttocks for every 10,000 votes exceeding 400,000 in the recall vote. That is a fun way to get people to come out to vote. And of course, he said for everyone above 400,000, well, guess what? They had 575,000 votes, and he was snapping chopsticks with his ass to the point that he had a local gastroenterologist who said splinters from broken chopsticks could accidentally pierce the flesh. He says, please don't do this, is what this guy said.
Wait, was he chopping them for votes for himself or just for people?
No. It was a recall election. It was a recall election.
Oh, good.
So
you know,
trying to get,
good for him. He's look. Look. Come November. What, November 15th is it? I'll go out there and fucking snap chopsticks to my ass. If I don't see people in line, I'll do it. Yeah. Why not? I'll take one for the team.
But yeah.
Wow.
Do you support snapping chopsticks with your ass for votes?
No. What the fuck?
I gotta say, I don't know. I mean, if it gets people out to vote, hey, I mean, why not? But we have to do all we can do for democracy, right?
Lord have mercy on us all.
She wants to know, how do you snap chopsticks with your ass? I don't know, Naomi, but this guy figured it out. So
I'll look into it. Maybe we'll have like a demonstration next week or some sort of at least some kind of like a graph chart of how to do it or something. I don't know.
Yes, I don't know how to put a not safe for work warning on our show yet, so that might have to wait. Another story that right, and to answer the question, I don't give a shit. That's funny. Let the guy do whatever the hell he wants. This story, I'm going to jump the gun here and say I do give a shit, and not in the best way. And that is that the Oscars are planning to add a diversity requirement for eligibility. And the reason I have a problem with this is because some of the greatest films we have ever had in our lives were a depiction of life of a certain group. I think of The Godfather, virtually all Italian cast, Italian American writers and directors and producers. I think of the show that just was on Netflix, right? Unorthodox, which was virtually all Jewish cast. These things would not be, I know it's a show, but Schindler's List, Jewish director, Jewish writer, and some Jewish cast members. I have a problem with the idea that I'm all for diversifying the Academy, right, which has been a problem for a long time, but that you won't be eligible to get an Oscar unless your film meets diversity requirements, I think is anti-art, and I think that it's a problem. What do we think?
I don't know when the last time I was at a movie, Gideon, so I mean...
Yeah, but you watch movies.
Yeah, I do, but I watch movies that appeal to me, and I don't really give a shit if they win awards or not. Look, I've never been a big fan of the Oscars because there are movies that I love that have never won. There are actors that I think are incredible that have never been nominated. I think that being judged as the best actor in the world based off a panel of whoever, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
But they do get, the problem is they care, the actors care, the directors care, and they do get financial incentives too for it. So there is an incentive to care for the Oscars. I give a shit. I don't want people to not. I mean, what about Black Panther, for example? All black cast, fantastic movie. Would that not be eligible then? It was nominated for an Oscar. Would that no longer be eligible to get an Oscar? I mean, people deserve the recognition for making a great film. And though I applaud the idea that you shouldn't keep people out, I think there are certain stories. I mean, look, my family's all Jewish, right? Does that mean that if I want to tell a story that has mostly Jewish actors, like that wouldn't be eligible?
Look, I think you make a good point. I think where they would be better off is the diversity should be across the performances. So across the nominees, across the people that are actually being nominated for the awards. There has to be more diversity in nominees. And I think you're. I don't know, because there's so many. I mean, there's just so many. Like you said, there are movies that are just about a group of people or a period in which I don't know. I think it should be against more nominees, more diversity against nominees.
And I agree with you, Stephen. But I think the way we can achieve that is not necessarily by saying, okay, there has to be one or two directors that have to be African or American or Black. There has to be blah, blah, blah. There has to be a Korean. I don't think that's the way to do it either. I think the way to do it is diversifying the Academy, like Gideon was saying, because then if you've got, I don't know what the percentage needs to be, but it needs to be multicultural for sure. The Academy, whoever does the voting, needs to be the diverse group, because I want to see an all Jewish movie. Because I am interested in history. The second
you'd want to see an all black movie, a black cinema,
Yeah, the second we start denying our history and erasing our history, we run the risk of doing what China did, and during the revolution there, the cultural enlightenment or whatever, and they completely deleted their history.
What about foreign films, right? What about foreign films? What about films from China? And so to answer a question in the comments, they have not announced any sort of they haven't announced the requirements. They haven't announced anything with respect to that, but they just said that they will be there. I mean, so you're going to make a movie, but because you didn't have an Asian boom mic operator, you're not going to be eligible for an Oscar, or you didn't have a Jewish key grip, therefore your film is not going to be eligible. I don't know. I think I spoke to someone who was a casting director in Hollywood. I won't say her name. I've worked with her for many years, and she is as big a supporter of diversity in the arts as you will find. And she just found this appalling. She said, "This is absurd. It's anti-art." Because of think of a movie like Braveheart, or think of all these movies that dealt with one specific group dealing with something, and that wouldn't be eligible for whatever reason. I think that's a serious problem.
But aren't we in the age of participation trophy anyway? So maybe we just need to give everyone a trophy and say you're all winners.
No, but look. Here's the good part about everything. At least the questions are coming up. At least people are trying to find ways to make changes, and it's it should have started sooner, but it's happening now, and that's great. It's I guess it's important that we care about this one. Although I don't really watch movies. I have to be honest. Since COVID, I've been watching series. I haven't been watching movies. I think they should actually just the Academy Awards should just give fucking everything to Netflix, because.
Well, I mean, that was interesting debate. Did you see that debate that the Ballad of Buster Craggs, I think is what it calls, the Coen brothers film.
Yeah.
Scraggs, something like that. Yeah, the Coen brothers film, they managed to put themselves in the theater for basically a week just to fulfill the requirement that it was in the theaters so that they could be nominated. Steven Spielberg was very much against the Netflix getting nominated for movies. He wants them to be in the theaters. He's done well for himself.
Well, I mean, that's the purist. That's the purist in him.
Well, he's done great in the movie theaters. I mean, you can't take two steps in any direction without tripping on a Spielberg film that made $300 million.
Right.
Excellent. All right, moving on. Actually, I think that was our last big story. Is there anything else we wanted to cover? How about some viewer questions here?
Yeah, sure. Let's take some viewer questions.
We should take some viewer questions. If not, we've been going at it for a while. Leah, where's your drink? Why are you
I'm drinking water. I have a child here, so
okay. Well, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like, so I guess that's
right.
I guess it's
I
allowed.
normally don't know what that's like either, and I'd normally have a tequila soda in my hand. That would be my drink.
Which tequila?
Choice. Or a bourbon myself.
Which tequila?
I have 2 bottles of Buffalo
I got it
Trace
for you.
over there, courtesy
There you
of
go.
my virtual bro-in-law, Gilbert.
I don't know who got her that. It wasn't me. Okay, it was me.
Do we have any viewer questions?
No, we don't yet. Well, Mark says we need to be on television. Mark is enjoying the show.
Agree.
I wish.
I appreciate that, Mark. Mark, you got to come on the show. We got to get Mark on the show and talk about something else.
It's funny that recently the Met Orchestra made up a good point. They posted something on Instagram about how they want to make changes in going forward in the future to have more diversity and to support the Black Lives Matter movement, which is great. But one of the key things they said, which is really important, was more community outreach in underprivileged areas, which I thought about that for a moment. And I was like, it's incredible that they said that, because that's exactly what opera companies need to do. And I was thinking about this time during COVID, right? So during this period of COVID, you want these institutions to survive. And then you're thinking, why isn't anybody bailing them out? Why isn't the government helping? And then you have to realize, how much did they impact the community? Not just the people that go to the performances, but the people that are actually in that area. I mean, in my area, Upper West Side on the Met, we have a really wealthy neighborhood, and we also have a really underprivileged area here. So why, I think these companies in the future, they need to start doing more community outreaches, being more involved in your community. Because you know what, as an arts organization, it's your job, and you need to get the community active. And the only way to keep our business alive is to keep the community alive and active and get them to participate, and also participate in events, whether it's having the cast of La Traviata going out and cleaning up a fucking street corner for 2 weeks, or helping people with groceries, or helping people do chores around their house, helping them to get financially better, helping them where they need it. Who knows? I think it's important from this point on that we hold people to that, and in order to keep the arts to survive, we have to do more community outreach. I believe that 100%.
Bravo. I
Well,
agree.
I think the barrier to entry. We've talked about this before. With I think we may have Eric Owens at some point onto this show. It's great. We had Leah, we had Quinn. Maybe Eric. We'll have the entire cast of Don Carlo from Washington National Opera before we.
Yeah, man.
But with respect to with community outreach, right? I think the barrier to entry in opera is so high, right? So people don't know what. They don't know. Well, it is, right? When do you clap, right? Like you see it in recital happen all the time. In between songs, somebody claps, everyone glares at the person. No, wait for the set to be done. You know, it's in another language. I don't know. Will I understand what's happening? People are intimidated to go into the opera. They are intimidated. So that's a fact. Like I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my life when I'm like, hey, do you want to come to my performance? Well, will I need to wear this? Will I need to know Italian? Will I need to know French? And I think that's part of the outreach. I think we need to lower the standards to just walk into the door. For example, in Dallas, you can bring in sippy cups just like they do on Broadway for alcohol, right? The Met doesn't allow that. A lot of places don't allow that. So I just think that there are things that we can do to make it more welcoming to people who don't know, because they just don't know the opera. It's like another world.
I'll tell you what, I've never worked with a colleague, and Leia, you could probably agree. I've never worked with a colleague that came off the stage and said, "Oh my God, they fucking applauded after my aria." I've never experienced that in my life. And I do know colleagues coming off saying, "Oh my God, the audience is dead. I wish they were a little more alive. I wish they were a little more into it." And I feel like that we need to allow our audience to express how they feel during the performance. It's so great.
It's discouraged, Stephen. I mean, I remember seeing Ben Heppner and Deborah Voigt and Lohengrin, and the final chords were playing of Act 1, and someone started clapping, and you heard shh, shh, shh. You had to be quiet. You had to be absolutely quiet until the orchestra completely cut off. I mean,
absolutely.
That's it. And was that? Liam, sorry?
I was at a performance of Falstaff in San Francisco. Bryn Terfel was the Falstaff. You okay, Stephen? Okay. Bryn Terfel was the Falstaff.
Okay.
He's hilarious in that role.
Yes, he is.
If you know Falstaff at all, it's a fucking comedy, first of all.
Right.
Second of all, if it's done poorly, it's terrible. But if it's done right, which this production was,
can you believe that?
It was so hilarious. I was guffawing. I was hysterically laughing.
Right.
And I'm a performer, but I was feeling my emotions and laughing, and I can't tell you how many hoity-toity audience members turned around and just stared at me, gave me the death glare for responding to theater. God forbid. Respond to theater, people. That's what it's there for.
I mean, like, let's not start the wave in the middle of like.
Okay, let's not start the wave.
There are limits. Let's not start the wave. But
because those are the wave.
Okay,
fine.
If you like something, fucking tell people you like it. Let them know you like it.
Clap, damn it! No, they're right. But I do think that that we need to lower the barrier to entry and be more forgiving of people who quote don't know. And what do you think of opera in another language? What do you think of opera in English? I mean, for centuries or for decades, maybe almost centuries, people were performing operas in the native language, and then right when super titles came around, they're like, well, we don't need to do that anymore, right? The audience responds differently when it's in their native tongue. Look at Magic Flute, which was instructed by Mozart to be done in the audience's native tongue. Right. Mm-hmm. And how audiences respond to it when they hear words in English, or if you're in America or England, rather, you know what I mean? I've heard Traviata in Czech. I've heard Bohème in German sung by Fritz Wunderlich, and the audience responds in a different way.
Look, I think people forget, like we're creating art, and art has to be an expression, and it has to be something that moves you. And
yes.
I feel like we've gotten to the point where everything has to be too pure, right? So we're like, when we go back and we're going to do the first edition of Verdi's Otello, it's like, well, by the fifth one, that's what he wanted. Like,
Exactly. He didn't want the first one.
He didn't want the first one. He edited it. Okay, but we'll go back and we'll do it. Or it's like, well, that's not what was intended. It's like, well, the composer changed it. He didn't intend it to be this way. It doesn't, like, I feel like, I don't know. I'd rather somebody do something amazing in a language that they're comfortable with than hear them struggle in something else, you know? I mean, of course, I'll always want to hear like Bohème in Italian because that's just the way I like it. That's. I mean,
Same.
I feel like Italian opera should be in Italian. German opera should be in German. French opera should be in French. But look, if having an English opera or having Bohème in English in a place in, like, say, Middle America that's going to bring opera lovers in, why not? Who cares? They're in an opera. You know, who cares?
Yeah. I've done.
That's the biggest complaint I get. Sorry, Leah, continue.
No, I did 17 performances of Otello at English National Opera, and they do everything in English there. It was really interesting as a singer to do that. I didn't love it so much, but I love the production. It's the same one we did here here. I'm in Michigan. It's the same one we did in DC. But there was something to be said about having the opera done in the vernacular. It made it. I had people come to the stage door telling me how much they enjoyed hearing it in English. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to say something about the human voice and exposing people that have not been exposed to opera to the greatness of the freakishness of an operatic unamplified voice. Joyce DiDonato tweeted a YouTube video yesterday of a young Black man who had never heard opera or never seen opera reacting to Luciano Pavarotti's performance of Nessun Dorma. And this kid is just, you can see, I'm going to cry thinking about it. You can see his face change. You can see the tears start to come to his voice when he's experiencing this incredible entity that Pavarotti was. And I think that is what is so beautiful about what we do. It truly is visceral, and it changes people, and it gets you straight to your core. So the second we start exposing underprivileged areas and kids that don't have this exposure to this great singing, that's when we make the difference.
Yeah, I still get that way when I listen to Pavarotti sing Nessun Dorma.
Me too, Stephen, me too.
But here's the thing.
Sorry, Stephen.
Here's the thing about it. So our business, right, to us seems really large, but in fact, in the rest of the world, it's so small, right? So when you take a business that's that small to begin with, and then you start making it smaller by trying to make it more this, and it should be more this way, and it should be more this way. You're making it smaller and smaller and smaller, and you keep eliminating more and more and more of your audience. Yes. So I feel like the broader look, there'll always be houses that are for the opera enthusiasts. They'll always have those houses because, you know, they're held to that standard, and they can afford to be that way. But you can't hold every house in a country like America to that, because not everybody will be comfortable. So you have to, in areas that you have to appeal to that audience. And so, because you don't want to make the audience smaller, because you don't want to crush the art form so much that people don't want to attend it.
Absolutely.
You know, there was a guy on Twitter a couple of years ago, an African-American guy, when St. Louis was in the Stanley Cup Finals, and I guess he was from St. Louis, and he had just heard that, you know, St. Louis, of course, hockey is predominantly popular among whites in North America, just how it worked out. But he said he was watching the game. He's like, yo, is this shit always like this? And it got so much attention about how excited he was that the St. Louis Blues said, yeah, it is. And you're coming to the next Stanley Cup final game. They got so excited to see a new fan that they actually brought this guy over.
I love that.
The Stanley Cup final.
I took my cousin to his first Fidelio production. He had barely seen opera before my life. And I was like, I'm taking him to Fidelio. I guess he might not like it. And the minute like Leonora reveals that she's Leonora, he's like, shit, wow, it was great. He loved it.
Yeah. During Otello in DC, my sister said that someone behind her said, well, this is rolling along just like a movie. So that when they experience that kind of stuff, people who've never been to the opera, it's amazing. Our art form, we are so lucky to do what we do, you guys.
Yeah.
It's incredible when it's done the way it's supposed to be done, from the heart, from the truest place. It's amazing.
Yeah, sure is. All right, Stephen. We've
All
been
right.
going strong.
We have been going strong. Leah, thank you for coming on our show today.
Yes.
It's
Thank
great
you
to
so
see you
much.
because we probably won't see you for a while. Who knows? 7 months, 8 months, Gideon. You sooner than me.
Lord. I don't know, but I want to be a part of those musical theater sing-alongs next time.
Uh-oh, we got found out.
Those videos ever get out?
Yeah.
I'm coming after you, Gideon. I'm coming after you.
We have a leaker. I think I know who it is.
Oh,
No
man.
comment.
Just to me, don't worry.
Oh,
I'll
man.
sell them. If anyone wants to buy them, I'm cheap.
Wow.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you guys. I would never do that.
All righty. All right, Leah. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
Thank
Good
you
show,
so much,
Gideon.
guys.
We'll be back next week, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday. Check us out, Dabi and Costello, live from New York. But we can't use that. We can't say that, can we? We'll get sued.
We'll get
sued.
sued.
Yeah.
All right.
Live from
Sweet.
the city. All right. See you next week, man.